Welcome to another World of Warcraft Cataclysm beta video. This is Cromar for TGN. Today we're going to talk about Vortex Pinnacle, the new dungeon located in Uldum in Kalimdor. You go all the way to the southeast, get on your flying mount, and head up to the little flying citadels, and you can't miss the portal. This is a 5-man dungeon rated for level 80 through 82, but it's a bit hard for level 80 or 81. I would recommend going in at 82. The bosses are level 84, if that gives you an idea of what you're up against. So I'd hate to DPS something 4 levels higher than me. That'd be a little tough. My group here is going to be a Shaman healer, a Warlock, a Hunter, and a Mage. So we have crowd control to spare. Okay, moving on to the first pull. As you can see here, you've got one big guy in the middle and 4 smaller guys on the outside. Because they're so spread out, it's a lot easier for me to just line of sight pull these. So I'm going to pull them around the corner. Meanwhile, the Hunter has laid a trap, which is going to grab the big guy. If you have extra CC, as we kind of do here, you could actually do it a lot of different ways. You could, for example, bind one and banish one and trap one, and then you can just fight 2 at a time. If you're having trouble, if you're struggling, if you're actually playing this at the correct level, because we're a little over leveled for this, then you might have a little more trouble, and you might want to use that crowd control to its fullest. Blizzard has said they want the new Cataclysm dungeons to really bring back the need for crowd control, and I guess this is a pretty good example of that. In case you're wondering, I'm using a level 85 pre-made warrior, protection spec of course, with very poor gear. It's all greens, and the party here is all level 83. So we're gonna finish that guy off. After this guy, there's a pull of 2 of those big guys, but they're a pushover, so I'm not even gonna show them. This guy's weird. You hit him and he goes into hiding. He looks like he feigns death pretty much is what he does. And you can attack him, and damage numbers will pop up on your screen, but his health won't go down. So I don't understand the point of that. I mean, if you leave him alone for a while, he'll pop back up, and you can tag him again, he'll just go back down. So I don't really understand what the point of that mob is, but whatever. Just remember that it's not a threat or anything. You just hit it, and it'll go into hiding. These other mobs are pretty weak. As you saw, there was one of those big guys over there, so I just hit him with a heroic throw, and he feigned death for me. So moving on to the next room. This mob here is a Cloud Prince, and he does summon a bunch of little whirlwinds that will get away from you if you're not careful. Fortunately, they don't have much health, so they should go down to your AoEs. You should also instruct your DPS to pick them up if you're having trouble with this, but I don't think you will. The main problem here is actually that this mob will hit you pretty hard, much harder than normal mobs. If you're watching the numbers on the screen, he is hitting me for a sizable amount of damage. But he'll go down sooner or later. In this room you have 2 of the Cloud Princes. Now, one mistake I made here was I didn't pick up these whirlwinds on the side. Fortunately, it didn't cause a wipe or anything, but it's just something to note. Make sure that you pick up those whirlwinds with your AoE. If you don't, your DPS can still kill them pretty effortlessly. They don't do that much damage, at least not on normal anyway, and when you're over leveled. So moving on to the first boss. This guy does a kind of a cyclone mechanic, where he has a bunch of cyclones on the edge of the screen, and you want to stay inside, stacking on top of him, and that will prevent the cyclones from hitting you. He also casts a chain lightning. On normal mode, the damage is so weak that it's just ignorable, but if you're trying this on heroic, you might want to think about spreading out to prevent the chain lightning from hitting multiple people. But as it stands, it's not a big deal, so we're going to stay inside. After a while, the cyclones are going to retract. Now, the way I understand this is that you're supposed to run out of the cyclones, and it's supposed to stop hitting you when you get out of the cyclones, but it doesn't appear that works. It appears that the same damage happens to you no matter what. I mean, that's what it is now. Now, that may be bugged. I read somewhere that it is bugged, but it was unconfirmed. So, I'm not exactly positive, but this is beta. So by the time this comes out to retail, it'll be a little more clear. But for now, I'm still going to stick to that strategy. If you're melee, well, if you're anyone, really, when the clouds come in, you should run to the outside to theoretically avoid damage. But one thing you definitely want to do is make sure you're on the inside when the clouds are out. So other than the clouds, there's really nothing else to this boss. He's very simple. He's pretty much a glorified trash mob. And there's the loot if you care about that. After each boss, you have to ride the clouds to the next platform. You just right-click on this hurricane here. Just make sure you don't accidentally run off the edge. And yes, you can do that. So right-click on the clouds and it'll shoot you over the next platform. This first pull is just 4 of these guys, these squalls, or whatever they're called, yeah, turbulent squalls. They cast a hurricane spell, so tell your DPS to make sure they don't stand in it, especially your healer, make sure you don't stand in it. And as a tank, you should probably move them too, although it doesn't matter that much, because on normal mode it does not that much damage. And moving on, there's the dragon. Now this actually has something important. If you see there's a little green circle in the middle, that's actually a little healing spell he casts. It's like a circle of healing, or more like healing rain for the shaman. So what you want to do is make sure you pull him out of that. The best way to pull him out is just to tag him, get a whole bunch of spike aggro, and run to the other edge of the platform. He's kind of stubborn, it's kind of difficult to move, but once you've done it once or twice, it's not a problem. You just gotta be patient and he'll come over to you eventually. And once that happens, he's a piece of cake. Now this room, there is 2 patrols. Each of these patrols is made up of these 2 of these ghost looking guys. They're kind of easy, but they're kind of like rogues. They disappear, teleport around. Their name is like something or other assassin, so there you go. So you're going to go ahead and kill these guys, and after they're dead, because they go down pretty quick, then you'll pull the other group. You can see them in the background there. They're patrolling to the left. There we go. And you want to make sure you grab them before they get too close to the dragon. And once they're dead, you kill the dragon just like the other one. Now this area is a little weird. There was a bug, and I'm not sure 100% if it's fixed, but apparently it's possible to fall through the floor here. You notice I just hopped over that rail instead of walking around it. Make sure you do that. If you walk around it, there's a chance you can fall through the floor. I mean, this is beta, of course, so this may not be relevant by the time the retail comes out. But at the moment, that's something you should think about. The other thing is that these mobs here can actually evade, and I have had that happen before to me. It's very frustrating, as always. But as long as they don't evade, you should be fine. Now, there's also going to be a patrol coming down the ramp. You should see it in just a moment here. And you want to make sure you pick that patrol up. It's just 2 guys. Yeah, there it is, right there. So it just aggroed us. So make sure you pick that patrol up. And don't let them run rampant all over your healer. That's all there is to that pull, though. Once you're past there, you get to the second boss, the dragon boss. And he's pretty easy. The main thing you want to do is face him away from the raid. And the reason is he does this whirlwind mechanic, where these winds circle around you. And if you're standing on the right side, well, let me rephrase that. If you stand on one side, you get a 75% debuff to your haste. And if you stand on the other side, you get a 75% buff to your haste. So as a tank, you want to make sure you're standing on one side where you get the debuff. That way your DPS can be standing on the other side, and it'll help them kill the boss. Now, because of the buff, I did have a little trouble with threat here, but it's nothing I couldn't handle with some timely taunts. Also, I had vigilance up on the highest DPS group member, and that helped me too. But as you can see, his hit points do drop very fast because the DPS buff, and also because there's no phases, unlike the other bosses here. So you don't have to constantly run around and avoid damage. And there's the loot, if that's important to you. Now this mob is a little more, or this group is a little more interesting. These are humanoids, so they're vulnerable to all normal humanoid CCs. The skull there is an adept, which is a healer. Now here I'm going to be a big noob and thunderclap that guy out of the ice. So, oops, but that's okay. Fortunately, it doesn't matter here. But if you're struggling with this, and if you're playing this at the correct level, you might want to be a little more careful than I am, and use your CCs to greater, use them more properly. But once you kill the healer, it's really a piece of cake. These other guys, they do have some abilities, but they're nothing to worry about. They do stun you. If you're tanking, that can be kind of annoying, but that's about it. As long as you plan everything properly, you should have no problem with these guys. Okay, this room is interesting. That pyramid of lightning you see there is a special field where the units inside of it, that includes your allies, by the way, are basically immune to spells. I mean, that's basically how it works. I think if you spam enough, you can get stuff through it, but I'm not 100% on that. So the best way to do it, I mean, here's the rule of thumb. The bottom line is pull them out of the grounded field. Don't let them stay in that field, that pyramid of lightning. Pull them out here. And I like to use a line of sight pull around the corner, as you just saw, because it prevents them from standing back and casting. Now, one of their healers did get loose, and there was actually 2 adepts in that pull, so we CC'd one, but he got loose, and he's over back there on the railing casting. But we're going to re-CC him. There you go. The Warlock feared him. So once you kill everything, just pick up the stragglers. I like to switch to the healer immediately. You see I put a skull over his head just so everyone else would too. This room is obnoxious. These little wisps will shoot lightning at you. They don't really have any aggro mechanics or taunts, so don't bother, just single target them down. They hardly do any damage anyway. Now this room's a little more difficult. I suppose with heavy CC you could probably trivialize this, but what we did was we just CC'd the adept on the left. He's got a star over his head. It's hard to see now, but you'll be able to see it better in a minute. And of course DPS the other adept, which is the skull. Once you kill the first adept, of course, that's when it gets easy. Having 2 adepts up at once is bad news because they do spam heals pretty efficiently. So you'd have to have 1 DPS assigned to just interrupting and stunning them. I suppose if you have a rogue or something, that's not a bad idea. Maybe a Fury Warrior. There's also a Heroic Leap to think about, which I don't really use to its fullest. Since it is a new ability, I'm just having trouble getting used to it. There's the star. As you see, the Shaman was able to hex him, which is totally awesome. The last time I did an instance was where you actually had to CC things, was Burning Crusade, and the healer couldn't CC then. So now you have 4 CCs in your group instead of 3. Anyway, the next pull inside the grounded field is pretty tough. One trick you can use is Death Grip. Death Grip does work on enemies in the field. Another trick you can use is what we did here is just charged in, and I just used Gag Order to pull the first adept out, and then I used Gag Order again, this time with Shield Bash, to pull the guy on the left out. And basically I just waited for the first adept to die, and as soon as he was dead I immediately switched to the guys that were in the field, the 2 ranged casters. And that spell they cast, by the way, if you see that guy in the background in the top right of your screen, he's casting Lightning Lash. What he does is just randomly spams it on your group members. There's no threat or anything for him. Okay, so moving on to this guy. This is the final boss. He's very easy. He's trivial, at least on normal mode. I kind of hope they tune him up a bit to match the rest of the instance, or nerf the instance. Although I actually prefer they did nerf the instance. I kind of like the challenge, but he's going to cast this little lightning triangle on the ground, and it's normally you'd think, oh, get away from it, but no, here you actually stand in it. He's kind enough to give you a protective barrier. If you stand inside the lightning triangle, and he does his little storm mechanic here, and he'll kill anyone that's outside of the lightning. So, bottom line, stand in the triangle, and you'll be fine. And you should get like 2 triangles off before you kill him. I believe that's what it is. But he's going down here in just a few seconds. The only obnoxious thing is that all the running around makes it take longer than it should. But its damage is actually very low. He hardly does anything. This guy actually reminds me of the lightning boss from Zulaman. If you were lucky enough to play Burning Crusade at that time and play that boss. Except he like rised up in the air instead of making a line on the ground. So anyway, there's the loot. And well, that was fun. I had a lot of fun with this instance. I mean, it was easy, of course, because we were so over-leveled and over-geared for it. But I can imagine this will be very hard if you're playing at the proper level. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.